Hello, I'm Keith, and I'm looking to run for the ninth congressional district in Florida, congressman for the ninth congressional district in Florida. I'm aware it's held by a Republican, so-called conservative, but you know what? I think I have a message, and I have a voice, and this is a Democrat point, and this is one reason why I'm actually doing the Democrat point, to give me a outlet where I can actually express myself, because I believe I represent the majority of Americans in general, the majority of Floridians in general. I'll take, for example, the big controversy that's going on right now in Central Florida is USF. And it's being broadcast, no doubt, all over the state. USF to be receive $100 million budget cut. USF to be the state senate riles up against it. The local state senate senator riles up against it. Jim Norman riles up against it. And now they're talking about only 60 million, which is still 20 million more than any other state university in the state of Florida. So, and this goes to say, to a point that I brought up, and I've been bringing up often, how Republicans bring up things, they do things, they cause things, they make things, they cause problems and troubles, and then they run against it, or make it seem like they're doing something, a problem that they cause. Now, why is USF having to go through all this crazy budget cuts? Why? Because they really want to divert the attention from something else that's much more detrimental and statewide and harmful to the public educational system of Florida than USF. Don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling it, but with 40,000 alumni in Florida, University of South Florida, and 15,000 attending students, for them to totally disregard this local seat being held by Jim Norman, not Greg Norman, who's the golfer, as someone brought to my attention, is a blatant, what could be considered to be a blatant slap of disregard. But it's not. What it is, it's something to divert the attention from the things that they have been doing, the poor legislation that they have been paying, the way that they have been poorly legislating, and the failures that they have been doing, and what they have failed in doing. One of the things I want to bring up, and this I bring this up often, is how, or recently, is how the majority party in Tallahassee recently in December passed legislation to higher the grades or the scores for FCAT. FCAT affects every child in this state. South Florida, Central Florida, North Florida, East and West. It's reported by the Tampa Bay Times, no less, that, give an example, the A-rated schools here in Hillsborough County, we're looking at Hillsborough County having Hillsborough County. They have for the region, they have Hernando, Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas. But let's talk about Hillsborough County, which has the greatest number of A-rated schools. in the state of Florida, most likely 104 A-rated schools. But because they have raised the FCAT scores or raised the bar on our kids, on our children, it's predicted that 104 from 104 A-rated schools, it's going to drop down to 64. It's going to drop down 40. It's going to knock 40 schools out of the A-rated status. It's going to knock out from Pasco County. It's going to go from 40 to 17 A-rated schools. So 40 A-rated schools to 17 because of these FCAT scores. They're going to go with Pinellas from 52 to 34. And so on. They got the B-rated, the C-rated, and the D-rated. But this was in Thursday's paper. Whereas Friday paper, USF once again dominated. You understand what I'm saying? Jim Norman voted for that. Jim Norman voted to screw over all of these children. The asinine legislation that they passed. You have the ESE, which is basically for special education, right? Those who are slow learners due to physical handicaps of some nature. Now they want to judge them, those schools, by the same standard. And why is this? Because they want to promote charter schools. But it's hard to argue for charter schools when the Florida school system is rated number 5 in the nation. You see how this goes? USF, yeah, USF. Okay. Because they don't want you talking about FCAT. They don't want you talking about Burns Middle School. They don't want to talk Middleton Middle School. They don't want you talking about Sims. They don't want you talking about Junta. They don't want you talking about possibly Bloomingdale, Brandon High School, Riverview High School. They don't want you talking about all these schools. They don't want you talking about all the schools that are in New Tampa. They don't want you talking about all these schools that are going to possibly end up losing funding, state funding, because they don't meet the state FCAT scores. And this is against the recommendations from surveys that they paid for. People say, don't do this. They did it. Well, if we do that, what will happen? Well, you cause damage. They did it. Jim Norman voted for it. And every person in the Conservative Party, every person in the Republican Party, they held the party line. It's ridiculous. Yes, FCAT, USF is a problem, but FCAT is a bigger problem. Their goal is to break this and to run on it. To say, you know how bad it's going. Even though the teachers here, the educators are here, are providing the highest quality. Even though the educational system in Florida was gutted by $1.7 billion, which was oddly enough was the same amount that the present governor, when he was a former CEO of the healthcare corporation that he was running, was fined. $1.7 billion. Wasn't they fined $1.7 billion, Rick Scott? His former corporation, where he was a CEO and walked away with a $300+ million detachment package. Yeah. And I want you to stay focused on this because our leadership won't even vet our candidates. Our candidates won't even bring this up. This affects millions of students and millions and hundreds of millions and maybe even billions of dollars of state funding. So they could take it away from the public school system and gear it towards or guide it towards the charter school system that does not provide the services under the same under or in the same environment or conditions that the public school educators are. And I want to make clear my sentiments regarding this. If you are an educator and you vote Republican or conservative, even though they continue to make your job harder, and they, instead of giving you a cost of living increase, find you a 3.5% decrease in your salary, that's $1,050. If you make $30,000, that's $1,050. If you make it $40,000, that's almost $1,500. That's $1,400 that they have taken out of your paycheck when you should have been getting cost of living increase. And every educator, I believe that just about every educator in the state of Florida, and I know my fellow Democrats believe this, should have been getting an increase on merit. Because once again, this is the number 5, the 5th best educational system, public educational system in the nation, which by default makes it one of the top flight educational systems in the world. But it's hard for them to do what they want to do, which is take money and steer it towards charter schools, private organizations, when the school system is doing so good. And I just want to end on this note. I'm Keith. I need 7,000 signatures in order to be put on the ballot for the Florida 9th Congressional District as a candidate. More to be coming. And that's one of my points. This is a point that I'm making. That when you're a candidate, you got to look past the obvious stuff. And the obvious stuff is that they're using USF to cover or the mask or distract people from what the other failures or asinine legislation that they have been passing in the state of Florida that does not benefit the citizens of Florida in no capacity. Thank you for hearing me out.